Hi, Ananth sir. Welcome to the Indian Business Podcast.
Thank you.
Sir, I am very excited to have you because you are one of the most seasoned entrepreneurs in India. And your resume looks like the best resume in the country. You were the CEO of Myntra, co-founder of Medlife, and now you are building Brand.me.
Yep.
And sir, at headlines, when Brand.me was called Mensa, that Mensa hit $1 billion in valuation in 6 months.
Yep.
Now, more than the valuation, it speaks about the trust that you command in the market. Otherwise, hitting a $1 billion valuation in 6 months is impossible. And that says a lot about you. And when I looked at your portfolio of brands, you have ventured into protein with MyFitness, into
Yep.
perfumes with Villain,
Yep.
and into clothing
Yep.
with Dennis Lingo. All these categories, in my mind, and to most newbies, look like a category which have been widely explored and saturated.
Yep.
And they're hyper competitive in nature also.
Yes.
But even then, you have entered these spaces.
Yes.
And that is why I'm extremely curious. Why? Because you've been the prime witness of the D2C revolution of India. And now the D2C revolution of India is 2 decades old. So after the boats and Mamaearths of India, people think maybe the boat has passed. But then we saw Super You.
Yep.
And when I spoke to Kishore sir, he told me
Yep.
that even today, there is a $1 billion opportunity in the D2C space of India.
Yes.
But I couldn't find time to ask him how.
Yep.
Which is why we decided to have a conversation with you to try and understand
Yep.
where are these gaps
Yep.
in the consumer space of India. If a newbie has to look at this gap
Yep.
and address the white space, how to go about it and how to build operational excellence to scale to 100 crores.
Yep.
Because in the past 2 months, I've been having this conversation with a lot of these D2C founders, and what they tell me is that after we've hit PMF is when the real problem comes.
Yes.
We don't know how to handle operations. We don't know about tech.
Yep.
Quick commerce looks like a lucrative opportunity, but then it burns us out.
Yep.
What do we do?
Yep.
So, through this podcast, if we are able to deliver value to those founders who might encounter problems
Yep.
and can solve for them in advance, that'll be great. That's the agenda, sir.
Terrific.
So, sir, firstly, I want the audience to know about you. So, please tell us your story and how did you get to Brand.me?
Firstly, by the way, thanks for having me. You just called me old without calling me old by saying seasoned. So I'm going to ignore that for a minute. But look, I started off, I think I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I spent almost 15 years in consulting. I was at McKinsey, where I did mostly product development, supply chain, operations type work around the world. So I lived in China for 3 years, which was very interesting because it was 2002 to 5, and all the Chinese tech companies were just taking off. I came back to India end of 2009 and left McKinsey as a senior partner to join Myntra as the CEO, right? And the reason I left, I think, is also, I want to emphasize it a little bit because where to play matters. I joined from being an automotive product development supply chain consultant to being a B2C e-commerce fashion CEO, right? And if you think about it, it doesn't seem like a logical choice, but the choices were made on 2 things, which I think are important for scale up that you're talking about. One, there's a large market which is actually at an inflection point. So I felt like e-commerce was at an inflection point. This was in 2014. And I felt like fashion would take off because modern retail was still very small in India, right? So you felt like a very large category growing very fast. And the second, which most people don't talk about, is people. You have to like the people that you work with. You have only one life. So you have to really enjoy the people that you work with. And I met Sachin, Binny, and Mukesh, and I liked all 3 of them. I still like all 3 of them. So, so I said, I'll take a bet. And it turned out to be one of the better things I've done because it was operational. So I did Myntra for about 4 years. Business really scaled. The Walmart sale sort of happened. Decided I would be more entrepreneurial. So I actually invested into a healthcare e-pharmacy company called Medlife. There were no external investors at that time. The 2 original founders, Prashant and Tushar, had put in most of the money. And then I was only the 3rd investor. So I bought 10% of the company, which in hindsight seems like a ridiculously uncalculated move, but anyway, it turned out okay. We went through some very tough times, almost ran out of cash. COVID hit us, but we got quite lucky because COVID was a tailwind for the medicine delivery business. We eventually sold it to PharmEasy, which was the #1 player at that time, and turned out to be a sort of good exit for all investors and so on. And then I decided I'll be a full entrepreneur, so I'll start something. And why start something? I felt, I'll go back to your original question, which is there a big opportunity in the consumer brand space? So that's the reason I started. I felt like Indian brands, I think, can go global. We have never produced a Unilever. We have never produced a Reckitt Benckiser. Why not? We have manufacturing capability, we have design capability. Now tech is a great equalizer, which I'll come to in a bit. So could we create global consumer brands from India was the opportunity, and I felt like it was at least $1 billion opportunity, hopefully a $10 billion opportunity in terms of what we can do. And I think there are still large niches that you can actually play in, which I'll come to. But so the reason I started was I felt like you could create an institution that lasted for the next 50, 100 years. And 20 years from now, I may not be involved, I may not be around, but can brand me. Mensa Brands, we renamed brand.me because I think it's brand, dot is for tech and me is the consumer, and it still looks like M, which is the Mensa M, and felt like there is an interesting opportunity to create the next new Unilever. I wouldn't say digital first, all of that. Saying what's the new modern version of creating a consumer brands company going global. So that's a little bit about me. So consulting to CEO to part entrepreneur to now I think fully there. I think we're still very early days. We're a 4-year-old company at this point, and I think we still have a long way to go. We're hoping to take this company public, and we want to be around for a very long period of time. But that's my sort of short synopsis.
Got it. And so from what I've read,
Yeah.
you initially followed the Thrasio model, right?
Yeah.
Where you used to acquire brands and then you scaled up brands. That was the original plan, right?
It wasn't. So let me just, I think in India, there is generally an easy way to say X of Y, right? So what I mean by X of Y is, you've created the Amazon of India, therefore I'll create Flipkart, or, similar with Uber, Ola, etc., right?
Yeah.
So my thesis was not Thrasio. I had not even heard of Thrasio when I first started.
Oh.
My thesis actually was, if you look at Myntra built a very large private brand business, not label. HRX, Roadster were all big businesses, right? And they were built as real brands. And so the goal was, can you build a platform agnostic global consumer brand company? Okay, so that's how I started. What's different between us and an aggregator like Thrasio? So firstly, Thrasio played a little bit of the financial arbitrage game, and then they acquired 200 companies, 200 plus brands, right? Our goal was always more focused. We were only in 2 spaces from the very beginning. We were in lifestyle and we were in health and wellness, right? The health and wellness was originally called beauty and personal care, but I made it health and wellness as a tweak because as I was thinking about the brands, health and wellness is a space that can go on for a long period. So we were only in 2 spaces.
Okay.
Second, India has a manufacturing, design and sourcing advantage, right? So you can build from India with a real cost advantage. You can build for India and for the world. So I think that was different.
Can you explain that, sir?
So I'll give you an example. One of my brands is called Majestic Pure. Majestic Pure is the largest aromatherapy brand from India, and it's actually maybe number 2, number 3 in Amazon in the US. We're in Target.com, Walmart.com, everything now, right? We in India have always produced essential oils, massage oils, body oils. We are a very large manufacturer. We actually ship by the container in bulk, but we have never built a brand. And why? Why haven't we built a brand? I think there are 3 things that have got in the way. The first, I think, is 20 years ago, you could not understand a consumer around the world. It wasn't possible, right? Because you didn't have data. Now that's no longer the case. In a digital first world, you can understand consumers in any part of the world by looking at data. The second is you needed distribution as the differentiator. You needed a distributor locally in order to sell. Now in India, 120 rupees you can get to 20,000 pin codes. In the US, for $3, $4 you can get to every pin code in the US. So it's very possible now to distribute. There's no problem, right? So that's the second big difference. The third, which I think is a little bit, we were chatting a little bit earlier, is ambition, right? I actually think, by the way, we don't think beyond India. I'm saying, why is it that I, who have all the capabilities, I can get capital? Why can't I build a Unilever? Why do I need to basically say, I will build only for this? So I think you need all these 3 things, and I think you can build a global consumer company. So that was the thesis. It wasn't Thrasio, right? Now, we did buy about 20 brands. We consolidated that down to about 10 brands. One of the lessons learned, see, I think no startup goes without a pivot, right? Every startup goes through pivots. So we bought 20 brands, and then we quickly realized in a year and a half, that you need focus in order to build large brands. And it takes exactly the same amount of effort, whether you're building a 50 crore brand, a 100 crore brand, or a 1,000 crore brand. So it's better to build 4 or 5,000 crore brands, which is what we've sort of pivoted, right? So we consolidated the 20 down to 10. Couple of businesses that didn't fit in with this thesis, we let go, right? And we've sort of focused, right? So we are not building a Thrasio. We are building a new modern version, an Indian version of Unilever. And I think that's a very exciting place to be, right? And I think that's what we want to try and build. And I think you can have global ambitions from India. It is one thing that, listeners can take away, right? We should have global ambitions.
Wonderful.
We should think globally and should be globally the best.
Where are the biggest gaps in the consumer space of India, sir?
2-3 things, right? My first thesis is generally compete in the least competed spaces. It's almost always better. So picking a niche is a much better way to build a brand because your unit economics are better. It allows you to invest back in brand building, etc., etc. I'll give you an example from one of our brands. My Fitness is our healthy snacking brand. The space in the market, in my mind, is there is a movement towards protein and health. But Indians genuinely want taste, right? In India, by the way, without taste, nothing sells. So we said, by the way, how can you be health ka tasty partner? That's the tagline. And I think there is a space there. And we picked peanut butter as a niche. Peanut butter is actually an emerging niche because Indians are becoming more health conscious. We have whatever, call it 30-35% vegetarian population which need a protein source. And people are working out. So the insight at some level was people who work out need a quick protein intake. And this is not the mother sort of spreading peanut butter on a sandwich and giving it to the child. It's actually, by the way, a gym goer taking 1 scoop of peanut butter and eating it. So the reason I'm telling you this is peanut butter may not seem like a large business, right? But if you take peanut butter as a niche category and you dominate it, we are at 22% market share. We're the largest player, right? And we did 2 innovations. One is we said we know our consumer audience well, which is it's a gym goer. Therefore, if you look at our peanut butter, there's no oil separation. The reason that's important is if you're spreading it, there's no problem with oil separation, right? When you open a peanut butter jar, you'll usually have some oil separation. Ours does not. And the reason that's important is the gym goer is not spreading it on bread. He's taking a spoon, taking a scoop and eating it.
Yeah.
And I think lack of oil separation makes it dramatically easier. It may seem small, right? But it's actually a big insight in order to basically say, I can dominate a space. Or I'll tell you, we were the first ones to launch a chocolate peanut butter. Why a chocolate peanut butter? Because most people are eating Nutella. Nutella or hazelnut spreads of all kinds, right? That's whatever, 45-50% sugar. Can we create a healthy alternative which tastes good? Again, going back to the insight of health, but taste as well. So we created a chocolate peanut butter, which actually tastes very good, but has less than 10% sugar. So you need 1 or 2 consumer insights. You need to pick a niche space. Then if you want to say, how can I build this into a 1,000 crore brand, for example, right? In my mind, you shouldn't think 100. I think a brand in India is 1,000 crores, right? That's when you've arrived. I think 100 crores is the first milestone, but you should have a vision to get to 1,000 crore. This, by the way, is a 200-250 crore type business. We think we can take it to 1,000 crores.
Okay.
Why do we think that? First, can we take it to other markets? Again, this ambition about being global. We launched the Middle East and it's starting to do really well in the Middle East, right? So how can you, and the reason that's interesting is, if you take the TAM of peanut butter alone in India, it's probably 1,200-1,300 crores, right? Yeah, that's why we're 22% of the market. But if you add the Middle East, you add another 2,000 crores, right? Suddenly the market, addressable market sort of triples, right? So how do you go in a niche space where you can dominate, but across the world? And then you can start to build a large brand, right? The other way to sort of we're expanding is, if you think about your life as healthy snacking and your health ka tasty partner, and the name is My Fitness.
Yeah.
Going global is important because it changes the TAM that you can really go after. And I think if you have the right product and the right distribution, there is nothing preventing Indian consumer companies from going global, right? So, and then the third angle of expanding, right, where you start with a smaller TAM, dominate it and scale is, we're going from peanut butter, which is a protein, healthy snacking thing, to saying all of healthy snacking. So we've launched protein bars, right? We're launching whey. So it's possible to expand with a strong brand presence in one category to adjacent categories. And each of these starts adding 500 crores, 1,000 crores to the TAM. And suddenly you have a 5,000, 7,000 crore market, out of which if you're 20%, you're there, right? So that's a little bit of how we think about it. And I think My Fitness is a primary example of picking a niche, sort of saying I'll dominate it. I will have a structural advantage based on a couple of consumer insights, and then really take it global and sort of build the surrounding categories, right? And I think, so that's one example of a niche. I'll give you another example of a niche. One of our brands is called Party Props.
Party props.
Yeah, which you may have heard of, right? But Party Props is actually half the market of it. The tagline of the brand is something I love. It's make every celebration magical,
Okay.
right? So we sell boxes of happiness.
Okay.
So you can have a 50th birthday party saying unicorn as a theme, or you can have a 50th day birthday party, you can have a Ganesh Chaturthi celebration. What we do is we curate a set of balloons, streamers, paper products, names, etc. that come in a nice box for you to self-decorate and DIY and sort of celebrate. Why is this an interesting space? India's GDP is going up, global GDP is going up. It is actually celebrations and sort of marking occasions is something that's becoming bigger.
Yeah.
It is an unorganized space. Lots and lots of small players, right? Every city, I'm sure Bombay has it, but every city has a street where you can go buy balloon streamers, etc., right? But nobody's ever built a brand out of it. Why not? Right? Why not? Usually is because it's an operational problem. This is a very wide SKU assortment. Usually you have between 2,000 and 5,000 SKUs.
Okay.
Right? Very hard to manage. But it's an 80% gross margin business, right? Because whether you sell for 600, 599, 499 or 699, when you want birthday celebrations for your child or for yourself, what do you care about? You care about quality, you care about design, and you care about on-time delivery, right? You don't care about the price. I mean, whether it's 100, 200, 300 rupees, or we sell this in the US as well, whether it's $1, $2, $3 this way, that way, nobody cares. So it's an interesting niche, right? Again, this has now become a large business for us because there is an opportunity to actually become a 50% market share player, right? And then it's very similar to, you need a lot of tech to manage it. So a small player cannot sort of build all the tech because if you have 3,000 SKUs, you'll run 50,000 campaigns. To run 50,000 campaigns, you need a tech platform in ads, right? So there are niches that you can pick where people are not competing and build global businesses from there. And I think it's a massive opportunity. I think Indian consumer brands should go global and Indian consumer brands should say, what is the niche I want to play? So My Fitness is an example of that. Party Props is an example of that, where you can sort of start at a niche, sort of build around, surround around it, and then go global and start to dominate globally.
So this is such an interesting insight because when somebody thinks of building 1,000 crore consumer brand, they would never think of party props.
Yes.
Right? And like you mentioned about peanut butter, all of them are built on consumer insights.
Yep.
Hi guys, if you loved watching this clip and if you want to do a deep dive into the podcast, we've mentioned the link in the description. So click that link, watch that podcast and take notes. Thank you for watching and subscribe for more clips.